Thank you, Mr. Johnson. This time I recognize Mr. Issa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here today. I've got a number of questions. First of all, I'd ask unanimous consent that the subpoena dated May 20th, 2013 from the Department of Justice Consumer Protection Branch be placed in the record at this time.
Without objection.
Thank you. In this document, which I am...
Now we'll start your time. Or
Thank you. Thank you. That'd be great.
Introducing your...
I'm done introducing.
Okay.
But in this document, which I'm told there was at least 50 subpoenas identical to this other than the name. Are you familiar with this document?
I believe so. I certainly am familiar with ones like that.
Right. We know that 50 subpoenas were served that were substantially similar or identical except for name. How many subpoenas did you serve similar to the one that you believe I've got here?
Well, again, I do think some of the documents have indicated in the neighborhood of 50, which again were not all necessarily identical.
Okay. Well, let's go through them. You named one company in which you had, prior to the serving of the subpoena, allegations of wrongdoing and complaints by customers. Is that correct? I mean, that's a standard to go looking, is that you have allegations of a bank doing things wrong, and that would be a reasonable reason. You had that in the case of Four Oaks, right?
Again, that certainly was the basis for the case, and as to all of the subpoenas,
well, you're not allowed to go on fishing expeditions just generally and harass banks, are you?
And in each of the...
No, that's a question. You're not allowed to go and just harass for the sake of it. You can't send subpoenas to every single bank. Let me rephrase that. The statute allows you to do it, but that is not your practice. Is that correct?
That is correct. And in this case, there was a reasonable suspicion, a reasonable basis for each of the subpoenas that were issued.
Then would you provide since these cases have come to a close without prosecution, would you provide to us the reasonable suspicion in the case of or at least an outline of them in the case of these 50 subpoenas served?
I think, Congressman, many of them relate to ongoing investigations.
Obviously, only the closed cases.
And so we can certainly look at the request. As I indicated earlier, we have a number of open...
Okay, well, let's go through this. It's earlier been testified that in fact, these were just subpoenas and they were not intended to intimidate or cause people to change their behavior. Is that right?
Right. They were intended to get information from institutions that we believed had evidence of fraud.
So now, listed in those evidence of fraud, in addition to Ponzi schemes, which are criminal, period, and if somebody knew about a Ponzi scheme, it's inherently a crime, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
There's credit card repair services, debt consolidation, online gaming, government grants or will writing kits, payday and subprime, threw in pornography. I thought that was good, that pornography is inherently, something that you should tell people about. Online tobacco, is that unlawful?
I'm not sure what document you're looking at.
I'm looking at the examples that are in your subpoena. Your subpoena includes an attachment of a financial institution letter. Your subpoena, all 50 of your subpoenas included an intimidating list of firearm sales, pharmaceutical sales, sweepstakes, magazine subscriptions, online tobacco. You included FDIC high-risk list in there that include a series of lawful businesses. Are you aware of that?
So the guidance was attached.
Sir, were you aware of that?
I'm aware that the guidance was attached to some,
okay,
although my understanding is not all of the subpoenas.
Okay. Well, we'd love to have all of them. In testimony before the House Financial Services Committee on Tuesday, you repeatedly disclaimed any involvement in the FDIC high-risk merchant guidance. Now, isn't it true that, assuming that this is a correct document, we'd like you to authenticate it here today, and we'll provide it to you, this is, in fact, shows that what you said in financial services just isn't so. You included the guidance. You said in financial services you didn't, and I quote, you repeatedly disclaimed any involvement with the FDIC high-risk merchant guidance, and then you included it in your subpoena. How is somebody supposed to think that you didn't participate in promoting this, and you put it into a subpoena that threatens the hell out of a small community bank or credit union. How do you reconcile that?
So I'd be happy to answer that question, Congressman.
I'd be happy to get an answer to that one.
The guidance that was attached, is guidance that the FDIC provided. It discusses in general terms the risks that third-party payment processors can present.
That's fine, but didn't by inclusion of that guidance, didn't you in fact, by inclusion, associate yourself with a position of the FDIC, and didn't you on Tuesday say just the opposite in the Financial Services Committee? So are you going to correct the record at Financial Services to disclose that in fact you had associated yourself, you had included the guidance, and you did in fact essentially team yourself with the FDIC for guidance that would say credit card repair, payday subprime, online tobacco sales, firearms sales, ammunition sales, pharmaceutical sales. These are high risk in a document you attached and then said that you were not associating yourself with the FDIC, which is true.
Congressman, I don't think that is a complete description of what I said on Tuesday. Our policy in this area is...
Did you sign the subpoenas?
Yeah,
I find your signature on the subpoena. You
yes.
signed a subpoena.
Mr.
It had
Chairman.
it. It had it. I just want to make one thing, and I'll close, Hank. I appreciate
just don't
it.
want you to badger the...
I don't want to badger. I just want to make a point in closing, because I believe the Financial Services Committee has a real reason to relook at this gentleman's testimony. He signed the subpoenas. He attached to the subpoenas specific allegations of high risk, and then before the Financial Services Committee, he testified that, in fact, he was not associating, and yet it was stapled to it. It is not common for subpoenas to have other documents and flyers stapled to them. Generally, a subpoena isn't owned by the issuing party. So I appreciate the gentleman yielding me the additional time. I thank the chairman for his indulgence, and I will have a copy of this brought to the gentleman to refresh his memory of what he signed.
Thank you.